Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Amar, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by Taylor Thomas, founder, coach, and visionary behind Impact Initiative Co., a purpose-driven consulting and leadership development network helping leaders and teams create enduring, positive change. Taylor, welcome to Founders Future.
Happy to be here, Amar. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive in. I always like to start from the beginning. So take me on a little trip down memory lane to before you started Impact Initiative. What were you doing beforehand? And then what was really the motivation behind starting the company?
Yeah, great question. And it's always fun to talk about this because it's nice to reflect on the journey and the road that got us here. It's easy, I think, certainly as entrepreneurs, we often are always looking ahead. And I don't know, if you're like me, you might be guilty of not celebrating your wins or taking time to reflect. Yeah, quick overview. I've been an entrepreneur really all my life. I had a couple of jobs to get me started as I was in college, but really shortly after college, I co-founded a technology company. I was coming from the world of health and fitness, and I, at that time, was a professional cyclist and had always really been interested in exercise. It had been a really core part of my life. And so I founded a technology company that was positioned in that space. And what we were aiming to do was really provide crowdsourced information that allowed people to access trusted locations to recreate around the world. So this is now Strava does a great job of that, Google even, but this was 20 some odd years ago. And so it was before that information was readily available. Fast forward, we did an okay job at solving that problem, was able to exit that company, and then went on to do a few different things. I founded another coaching company, actually specific to the health and wellness space, which is actually still in existence today. And that really, for me, was about applying what I learned in a technology startup to the world of coaching. So that's what first got me in this space, where I was really interested in thinking about these businesses as high growth, scalable ventures, but through the lens of building really impactful relationships with people to help them reach their goals.
Cool.
And so through that and some other ventures, founded Impact Initiative. Impact Initiative was born 100% from my sole commitment of helping people flatten the learning curve to reach their full potential and accomplish their goals. I love business. I love helping people understand what it looks like to show up in that space in a way that feels productive, that feels energizing, that actually gives life to them versus burns them out. I've done it poorly on my side several times, where the 120-hour work weeks and the whatever it took. And that's all well and good, but there's an opportunity to understand really what it looks like to really receive support and think about how we continue to be high achievers and really push for big, lofty goals without the expense of things like our health, things like our relationships, both to ourselves as well as those around us. And so Impact Initiative was born solely from that commitment, which is I want to help people, again, flatten that learning curve, really reach their full potential, accomplish their goals, but in a way that feels fulfilling, feels exciting, that allows them access to tools and resources and support that they otherwise wouldn't have had. Yeah. So that's high level overview of what got me here today. And now it's really where I focus the majority of my time, is just building relationships with people, understanding how I can help them accomplish their goals. I try to give more value than I take, and that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
I love it. Yeah, thank you so much for breaking that down. And I did see in your profile I think it was Impact Nutrition.
Yep. So I'm the managing partner. We've parlayed that into a small mergers and acquisition fund, where we focus on acquiring medium-sized businesses in the health and wellness space, primarily in the nutraceutical space. Nice. So I spend time there as well. Primarily, my role there is to come in, identify companies that could really benefit from leadership support, from some clear guidance, from some opportunities that they've otherwise might not have access to, everything from an infusion of capital to key leadership placements to connections and partnerships. And so myself and my team work with those companies and then help them grow and scale. And then on the back end, we have a portfolio of companies that we're able to continue to support. Yeah, so that's going on. And I also am involved in a business accelerator for the health and wellness industry. So that's TEC that I mentioned, the other coaching companies. Yeah, everything is moving in the same direction again. It's that kind of primary lens of how can I show up for people and leverage the things that I know. I'm not saying I'm an expert in any of these things, but I've certainly have some water under my bridge, and I just want to flatten the learning curve for people and deploy
Yeah.
the skills that I do have so that they can be more successful.
I love that. One of my earliest mentors when I was first starting off my career, he always would express to me the power of compressing time. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the ways that you can compress time is through somebody like yourself who's been there, done that, who's further along in their journey, who can lend a helping hand, an ear, etc., or a different perspective on whatever it is that they're doing. And all of a sudden they can take years and compress it down into weeks, months, etc. I'm curious for you, of the different ventures that you're involved in, which would you say is your primary focus?
Yeah, Impact Initiative is where I spend most of my time. I am heavily involved in the accelerator program. So that's specifically targeted early stage, primarily solopreneurs in the health and wellness, health and fitness industry. So I spend a lot of time there on the mentorship side. And we have a fantastic program and curriculum coordinator. And I work closely with her to just ensure that we're continuing to provide a service and a clear pathway for success to truly accelerate those businesses. And I couldn't agree more. That's I think about that often and even try to solve that on the service side of things with how I show up for people is, can you do it alone? Maybe, sure. Can you take what would maybe take you 3 to 5 years with an extremely high likelihood of failure and compress that into a 12 to 18 month runway with a
Yeah.
95% opportunity for success? Yeah, it's a no-brainer. And I learned that the hard way. I scratched and clawed and fought and tried to figure it out all myself. And a lot of that was my own ego as an early founder and thought that's what it had to look like. And now the biggest asset and the biggest opportunity for growth comes with trying to find someone else that's done it before or done it better. I always say if I'm the smartest person in the room, I need to find another room to be in. And yeah, and flatten the learning curve. And then Impact Initiative again is where I spend a lot of my time working with those companies. We work with founders, executive teams, leadership groups, as well as their teams within those organizations. So one of the primary things that we do is to build the bridge between leadership and founder teams into the rest of the organization so that we can really understand what it looks like to build a collaborative culture, one that has a shared language, that's on the same page, moving in the same direction. So often we see the breakdown in these organizations is because essentially everyone's not on the same page. And so we're trying to address these specific pain points in the business. We're throwing money at things. We're trying to run at KPIs and targets. If none of that is happening through some kind of key mechanisms and levers that we can pull, then it just takes longer to accomplish those things. And truthfully, if you're an early stage business, that's why so many of them fail. And so, yeah, to your question, Impact Initiative and then the business development or business accelerator and the development of that is where I spend
Awesome.
90% of my time.
Cool. Let's dive into Impact Initiative to give the listeners more context. So you mentioned a couple things there, founders, executives, teams, and then really building a bridge between the leadership team and then the rest of the organization to create that shared collaborative culture. Walk me through two-part question. One is, you mentioned founders, executive teams. Can you give us a little bit more context into your ideal customer with Impact Initiative? And then from there, we can dive into what it actually looks like to work with you.
Yeah. So ideal customer is what we would typically describe as a mid-sized company. So these are organizations that have 12 to 15 people on their team at a minimum. And that is up to things that are, we've worked with enterprise level companies with 40,000 employees spread across the world. But typically where we see the most kind of dynamic issues when it comes to the team development and the kind of the culture piece is in that classic midsize. So that's 10 to 50 employees or team members in a company that is still moving fast, that is still, even though they they've been established. They're still dealing with some of the startup problems. I think that's one of the things we think we're absolved of that once we have a little bit bigger team or we get to a certain point in the revenue of the business. And from my experience, that's not really the case. What actually happens is that some of the issues that we had when we were younger are now just amplified and touch more people. And so what we're able to do is to come in and really identify what those pain points are through the lens of the people in the organization. So that's the primary way that I describe impact initiative, is that we look at addressing the people and the problems associated with those people so that we can drive the KPIs of the business. So instead of why are my sales not what I want them to be, let's throw more money at marketing. Can we step back and actually understand, are there deficiencies in how we communicate or how the individuals in that team organization communicate the value proposition of the business or the shared mission, vision, or values? And when we see breakdowns in those areas, which we do every time, what that ultimately does is that is impacting the marketing team. It's impacting sales. It's impacting HR, which is your hiring and retention strategies, because you're not sure who is in alignment or who's not. That's the ecosystem. And to your question, the ideal client and landscape that we operate in. And
I like that. I like that HR, hiring and retention instead of human resources. I like that definition a little bit more. That's pretty cool. I like what you were saying about people and problems associated with the people. So it's less about let me put a band-aid on whatever the issue is, aka dump more money into marketing to drive sales. Let me actually go to the root of the problem and fix that so that the KPIs so we can drive results and KPIs. What does it actually look like to work with you? So let's say I come in, Taylor, all right, we're signing the agreement. What does it look like from there? Typically client engagement.
Sure. One of the core differentiators and things that we were really committed to out of the gate was that this had to be something that, one, was really usable inside the organization. What I mean by that is that it had to be easy to deploy and easy to see that it was moving the needle in the core objectives of the business. Otherwise, we weren't going to do it. And I'll give you just a touch of backstory here. And that came from the fact that myself as a founder continued to try to get support, hire the consultant, go to the leadership development conference, do the thing. And some of those experiences were fine. But what I found myself still wanting was I didn't have any tactical tools to deploy inside my business to solve the things that were stressing me out, the things that were keeping me up at night. And I always said, this is great, but I have to go back to work on Monday and I have to meet with my team and I have to talk to the board and the investors and all the things. And I don't feel any closer to really solving the pain points that I'm having. I feel a little bit better about myself. I have some different language that I can deploy, but it's not really moving the needle. And so that's really, from out of the gate, that's what we're focused on. It is always going to tie back into the tactical deployment piece. So we try to make that really easy. We start with an assessment that we've built for Impact Initiative, kind of part of our IP. What that does is just gives us a lay of the land, and it starts to help folks understand how they're positioned both within kind of their own life as well as within the organization, and where there might be some opportunities for upgrades, where we might see some deficits, as well as where we see strengths, so that we can start to massage the details and start to have really meaningful conversations specific to these individuals. Then we get to work. What we like to try to do is we try to host what we call an intensive. So that's a 1 to 2 day hands-on workshop, if you will. You might call it. Yep. We try to, as best we can, we try to make it in person. And those are purposefully and intentionally not in a boardroom. So what we tried to do is get the team, the group of people that we're working with, out of their office. We try to make them experiential. So we blend the kind of leadership development mindset training with, we'll do a workout in the morning. We do contrast therapy. We'll have a chef come in and have a food component. Those are fully custom for the team, but the goal is that it's an intentional space that allows us to think about things differently, right? As the saying goes, if you want to be someone different, you have to do something different. So if we just sit in the boardroom, we're probably going to get the same results, or we're going to think about things the same way. And so just creating that intentional space allows us to really get in and break free of just the day to day. Come in,
Yep.
here's my routine, open up my computer. Then we take what we learned from that. And again, those are built specific to each team. We have a big toolbox that we pull from in terms of how we deploy our tools within that time. And then we work on implementation. So then we go back and we typically will set up a structure that works in terms of just meeting cadence, who's involved in those meetings. And we'll work on how we take what we learned from our time together in person and how we actually deploy that in a meaningful way to move the needle in the business. And so that's where we get really tactical. We say, okay, great. This was our key takeaway when it comes to deficits in communication strategies between leadership, sales, marketing. What does that look like to actually turn that, right? And so we start to build systems and processes that are unique to that organization so that we can actually pull those levers and make a change. And then what we see really meaningful results, whether it is, we typically see within 6 months of working with an organization, we see upwards of a 30% lift in top line. If we're talking about teams that have really poor retention, so again, hiring and retention, they're not sure what that culture looks like. Within 6 months, we're seeing a 30 to 60% shift and change in retention. So we're keeping more people inside the organization. That has a massive impact on our bottom line, right? It's very expensive to attract, hire, and retain. So that's the goal, right? Is it has to be tied back to the key pieces of the business. And that's really the differentiator, and what we're committed to is businesses still have to do what businesses do, which is grow. They have to increase revenue. They have to support the people that they are responsible for. And so all of this work has to tie into that. And we start that day one, and we keep that through line all the way through the duration of our work.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you for breaking that down. Let's shift a little bit to the back end of the business, because I have a lot of coaches, consultants, and agency owners that listen to this. When it comes to client acquisition, so when you're looking to bring on more clients into Impact Initiative, what do you do from a lead generation and marketing front?
Yeah, great question. It's a dynamic one to solve for in this space, as you probably well know. The thing that works best for me, for us and the organization, is for myself and my business partner. So I co-founded Impact Initiative with my partner, Christine Hernandez. We are the face of the business and we get out in the world. So that looks like speaking engagements. We both try to be in front of an audience at least once a month. If we can get more of those, we will do them. Obviously, that has to be the right fit, but that's a key piece. Networking, again, being in the right rooms is really our core acquisition strategy. It's to tell our story. It's to connect in a meaningful way. It is to really listen and understand and ask good questions. And for the people that have felt the pain point that we solve, it's a very intimate, it's something that has really made a mark on those people, right? If you're losing your best people, or you have a team that feels overly unproductive, or your communication has broken down in your organization, or you're losing money because you can't figure out what the little tweak is to increase sales or to get your marketing team, these things that are very real. And when you go to work, you feel it. If you're whether you're in a leadership position or you're somewhere else in the organization, it's palpable. Because I understand that really well, because I've been there personally. I know that feeling. I know what it feels like to stare at the ceiling fan at night and try to figure out why that's happening and what I did wrong as a founder and how am I supposed to solve this. I'm responsible for all these people and I can't figure it out. I don't know what it is. When we talk about that, the people that feel that understand what we do and how we can help them and what it would feel like to not be in that position, right? We can imagine a world where when we solve those pain points, it really changes our relationship with our work. And that's really what we're committed to doing, is that we're changing the individuals in that organization's relationship with work so that it becomes an environment where those people can thrive and actually do better work than they thought possible. They can actually be empowered and have the autonomy that we all talk about. This is an autonomous work environment. It's easier said than done. But when we create that, it actually really is a very powerful thing. And people want to do great work. They might just not have the opportunity, environment, or the trust required to do that. And so when we can solve that problem, it changes the ecosystem and landscape of that organization for the better. To your question, the connection piece is really what we focused on. And of course, we have lead gen and we have a small sales team and we do all the other things that businesses do, but the primary driver is connection. It's not some sexy hyper scalable. It's Taylor Thomas getting on an airplane and going to talk to people and doing that pretty consistently, multiple times a month.
Very cool.
And I think that feels like a more meaningful way to start the relationship that we're promising than just a lead gen sales funnel, cold outreach. And again, we do that. I'm not saying that is wrong, but the relationships that continue to be the most meaningful, the most fruitful come from just the connection.
Yeah.
That comes from myself and my partner.
I'm sure you're stacking those airline points as well.
I'm good friends with the gate agent at my local airport. She knows me well.
I love that. So it sounds like when you're doing these speaking engagements, you're talking to the pain points that they're experiencing and they feel it. It sounds like you might already have this in place, but I know this is very effective just based off of personal experience and other people that I've seen. Have you ever, or do you plan on implementing some sort of, let's say, meta ads, for example, that speaks on those pain points to drive applications, booked calls with the sales team, et cetera, something like that? Because obviously the speaking engagements is fantastic, but I can imagine that sometimes it's not the most predictable, not the most consistent in terms of when you think about scale. I'm curious if that's something that you do or something that you've thought about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's something that we have done and continue to think about. Yeah, to your point, I'm under no delusion that me getting on a plane is the scalable solution. It's the thing I think, one, it's the thing that I enjoy and it allows me to I said at the top of the call, I want to give more value than I'm asking for. And that feels, at least at this point in my career, that feels like a really valuable way for me to do that, and a really important way for me to show up on that way. But yeah, absolutely. I think we have to make sure as an organization that we are in alignment with consumer expectations as it relates to how they interact with information and how they get a hold of us. And we have to have a presence on the platforms where people are at. We have to make sure that we have ads in front of the right people, that when people are able to make a purchasing decision and they're in that right place, that we're at least in the mix. And yeah, I think from my perspective, it has to be both. And that's how we think about things. We have this kind of scalable aspect. How can we take what Taylor does and package that in some form of content that allows for that more scalable touch point so that people can make a purchasing decision and take some action closer to, like you said, it's a sales call, it's a lead gen form, all the tools. Yeah. So I think it has to be both for sure in my experience. And that's how we think about things. And we try to diversify. And I think, what we are selling ultimately, and because I've spent so much time in the coaching space, I always say what you're selling is a relationship. The service that you provide comes on the back end, right? You actually don't get to deliver your service until you build trust with the individual, right? So if we lead with service, if we say, okay, this is the thing that I do, right? No one gets to feel that until they're inside of it. What they can understand is the relationship and the trust that you build. And so I think will continue to make the lead gen client acquisition part of this particular vertical a little bit more nuanced, because we are thinking about how do we package and scale a relationship and a really intimate connection in a way that doesn't, where I'm not on an airplane all the time.
Yeah.
I think, so yeah, it is something that I think a lot about that. It is how do we blend those two things? And specifically when you're talking about, truthfully, and a lot of people in this vertical or in this same space, you have fairly high touch point. You also have high price products, right? It's not hey, sign up for this thing, it's $99. We're talking about 6 and 7 figure contracts. It's a harder thing to sell with just a click funnel.
No, it has to be more relationship based for sure I think those types of the most effective funnel that I've seen with this, especially when it comes to higher ticket engagements, is just a simple call funnel. Hey, this is what we do. This is our offer. You hop on a call, get to know our team, and see if it's the right fit, kind of thing. And sometimes you'll get, clients out of that very quickly, depending on where they are in terms of like problem aware, solution aware, that kind of stuff. And sometimes it takes longer. But because it's higher ticket, then it's actually better if it's higher ticket because, cost to book a call nowadays is a couple $100 with a qualified lead. And then you're going to need to make sure they show. So it can add up to acquire one client, right? Why the high ticket is very important. Now, with that being said, I want to be respectful of your time. What is the best way for people to reach out to you to work with you?
Yeah, you can find us at impactinitiative.network, and our contact information is on there. Like you're just talking about, you can book a call straight from the website. We try to be easy to get a hold of. We're not trying to be gatekeepers. And so impactinitiative.network. Click on the contact button, and all of our information is right there. And anyone that's interested in learning more, I'd love to jump on a call.
Awesome. Taylor, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Amar.
Anytime. So that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go to impactinitiative.network to book a call with Taylor. That's impactinitiative.network. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or agency owner, and you're really looking to scale your business and you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io right here, closers.io, to hop on a call with our team and discover how we were able to go from $0 to $30 million in less than 3 years. Until then, keep on climbing.